Hey everybody. Tonight I'm going to do a video. Um, my person really likes things around their neck, so you'll see me tug at it a little bit. But we're going to be doing a video tonight, and I thought I would do a video now because I'm going to go live tonight and do the case. But I thought that we would tell some scary stories. Okay, the first one's called It Wasn't a Little Girl, and I am reading it off my phone, so I will be looking down. I was camping with my husband and his family at a small remote lake in New Mexico. There were about 10 people in our group and about 6 in another group at another campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were typically doing the activities that a camper will do, doing s'mores, having a few drinks, telling stories, and then all of a sudden they hear a little girl screaming. She was yelling for help. Neither group had children with them, but we were all positive that we were hearing a little girl and decided to search the area where we heard the noises coming from together. There was a field behind our campsite, and we all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from us in the field, making noises. We all agreed that it looked like it was 6 feet tall, skinny, white, and could be what was making the noises. We made our way closer to investigate, but whatever we saw started backing off as we got closer and disappeared into the trees. All night, we continued to hear a little girl calling for help as we tried to sleep. The Walking Dead. I'm a psychiatric nurse, and early in my career, I worked as a residential mental hospital facility. One of our residents was a elective mute, which means that they couldn't, or wouldn't talk, but there was no medical reasons as to why. He had spoken earlier in his life and the fact seemed quite normal back then, with the exception of being close to a 7-foot tall man. South and he was raised in the deep South, and joined the military when he was 19, but one night he vanished. He was declared AWOL, which means absent without leave. That's exactly what it means. That means if you don't know, you leave the military and then you're in trouble. And eventually he was declared missing and dead. 10 years later, a 7-foot tall man walked into the VA hospital emergency room in part of the Midwest and said to the reception, "My name is Marion Duchesne," not the real name, obviously, "and I've been dead for 10 years. These were the last words he ever spoke. He was covered with dust, and he was wearing the same clothes that he was reported missing the night that he vanished. His Social Security number had not been used, and there was no identification on the person. However, they were able to identify him. I guess via like fingerprints, things like that. The family was notified, but said they had already grieved their loss of the man, and whomever was claiming to be him could not be. They demand not to be contacted again. Marion paced all day, every day, moving his mouth that looked like he was talking or muttering, but there was no sound coming out. He had an unriving habit of throwing his head back with his mouth wide open as he was laughing heartily, but not even a breath could be heard. If I talked to him, he appeared to listen, periodically throwing his head back, and the laughter mimicking the way that was described. Various medications were tried, but they did not affect him either positively or negatively. Hold on. Occupational therapy did nothing for Marion, but he grinned, and unless Told to stay put, he got up and started pacing again. On the last day of my job, the last thing that Marion I saw of him was him pacing in the parking lot, throwing his head back in laughter, and obviously nothing coming out. Later, I wondered if all along I had been dealing with a ghost. All these years, I still don't know. Mm, Sorry, y'all. This is the first time reading this, so you think I know the word occupational, though. The unrest stopped. I was driving across country with my mom and sister when I was 16, and my sister was 20. It was late, but we were well rested still and alert. We were driving along the interstate and needed gas and a bathroom break, so we stopped at the only rest stop in 200 miles. There were a van full of teenagers on a road trip at the gas station, as well as a small gray car parked at the pump in front of us with two young men standing outside of it. When we, when we got everything that we needed, um, it says we got that something felt wrong. We had been on the road for days and seen many rest stops at night and never had been afraid until then. My mom and sister went inside and I stayed in the car. I heard a teenager say they were creeped out and couldn't get the pump to work and they left in a hurry. I was watching the car in front of us and the two men had not moved at all, not 1 inch. They were talking and they were talking on their phones. They were just standing there and they were still as a stone. My sister and me came, my sister and mom came running back out of the car to the car and got in, and the two men slowly turned and looked at us while we were not moving, pivoting the rest of their bodies. I swear to fucking shit that we were all saw the same thing. They had dark eyes as pitch and they were pitch black and empty, truly empty, not black, just reflecting any light at all. To avoid. Their eyes were really dark, as far as you couldn't see them. Not they were actually black. We sped out of there and didn't stop until we were in the next city. The worst thing about that entire experience was that we couldn't find a place on any map. We knew exactly which spot on the interstate to look, and we couldn't find it on Google Maps or a paper map that we had. We even asked locals about the creepy gas station out on the stretch of road that we got confused looks from the locals about what gas station. We traveled on the interstate since there was no rest stop, but they had asked the locals about the gas station, and locals didn't know about the gas station, so everybody there was creeped out. Woo! That one. It came from us from a graveyard. We were driving my friend's really old beat up Subaru through a massive graveyard. We stopped and walked down a hill and came across a little pond. There was someone sitting on a rock on the other side of the pond. The figure was all black, and we couldn't make out any features other than the fact that they looked like a man and was wearing some old style top hat. We suddenly waved and shouted hi, don't know why. He didn't show any acknowledgement and continued sitting still on the rock. All of a sudden, he jumped to his feet and started running towards us on the water. And then he vanished into the water. And halfway through the pond is when he vanished. My friends and I screamed and ran back to the car. The car wouldn't start, and we had something banging on the back of the car. It was a constant bang every few seconds, and we heard it. No one outside. There was nobody outside the car from what we could see in the dark, but something was making a noise on the car. I opened up my phone and started dialing my mom, and I wanted her to come get us and give us a boost, but I had no service. None of us had any cell service. The next 30 minutes we spent trying to get out of the car. No banging was heard afterwards. We felt very like a heavy pressure around us. Finally, the car started and we hit the pedal, and we hit the pedal to the metals, like they said. Pedal to the metal. We sped out of the graveyard so fast, immediately crossing the gates. All of our phones regained cell service. One thing that I know for certain is that someone was out there, and it wasn't animal or human. Mwah. Okay, the next one is it's good to see an old friend. When I was 37, I went to my high school reunion. I flew into the nearest airport and rented a car. The distance was about 35 miles to a very rural and almost abandoned part of the country. About 3 miles outside of town, I saw someone on the side of the road flagging me down. It turned out that it was one of the guys I had attended school with, Jim, not his real name. Gets into the car and we start talking. I had not seen him in 20 years, but still he looked the same, maybe a little older. We get out of town and I ask if he wants to come to the VFW and we have a drink. He says no, he'll just take me home. Jim's parents have lived only a few blocks from my grandmother's house, and I turned in that direction, but he said take him to the outskirts of town. There was a mobile home park out there, and I figured that that's where he lived. When I reached the end of the turn off, he said, "Just drop me here. It was good to see you again," and walks off into the night. I go to the VFW and meet some of the old classmates. We started talking, and I was asking them about the reunion and what they had been doing and everything. I mentioned that I had just picked up Jim for about 3 miles east of town and dropped him off. Everyone gets quiet. Even the guy singing karaoke stops and lays down the mic. My cousin goes white as a new t-shirt. Barb. Jim died on a curve 8 years ago, rolled his car. We all were at the funeral, I was told. Um, I started to feel really dizzy and I went back to the car to take some deep breaths. There in the seat was a newspaper printed 8 years ago containing Jim's obituary. I still have the paper. And it talks about Reddit. Okay, the next one is Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. After we moved into our new home, we were told a woman had died there at the hands of her abusive husband. She hated the man. My dad would wake up with scratches all over himself, and whenever my brother was there, was mean to my sister, um, or I, he would have scratches on him as well. One day, my brother hurt our sister and hit her with something. When he woke up later that night, he had a horrible bloody nose. The day we moved out, my brother accidentally broke his arm, um, his twin's arm, and was trying to do a wrestling move whenever it happened. He swears that he wouldn't have died that night if he wasn't the last one out of the house. Oh, he swears that he would have died that night if he wasn't the last one out of the house. Death came for him. This is a different one. Got a piece of hair sticking out there. They bring out these big honker of ears. I was standing in my parents' room talking to my very sick dad at the time. He was dying of stage 4. Um, give me a second. Throat cancer is what it is. Esophageal cancer. I got the feeling. Some of these words sometimes I know them, but I sit here and I'm like, I know this word. Why can I say it? I know it. I know it. Esophageal cancer. I got the feeling that something was behind me. I looked towards the doorway to the living room and saw about a 4.6-inch fully black shadow peeking around the corner, and it had hands on the door frame. I ran towards it and it slipped back around the door. When I got outside the doorway, there was nothing. My dad was completely confused when I stepped back inside the room and I told him what happened. People say people who stayed at my house in my dad's final days claimed they had seen it. My mom saw the figure on multiple occasions in multiple places until he passed away. We haven't seen it since. I don't know what possesses me to binge Reddit, true life crime stories, true stories, ghost stories, but yet I do. And the next one will be my mother's attracted to evil. After my parents divorced, when I was a teenager, I lived with my mother. I was experiencing a lot of paranormal happenings. Several times when I was reading in bed, the room would get really icy. Next, it would feel as if something or somebody sorry, there's stuff popping up on my phone. Somebody hated me and was staring at me. When I got that feeling, I would leave the room and come back about an hour later. Sometimes during the day, I would see a shadow figure sneaking along the bedroom walls. Sometimes in the flat or in the room, it was pretending to be my dog. I went into the room and I heard a deep growl from under the bed. My dog wasn't capable of making the noise that deep. Excuse me. And this sounded like a really big dog, and it gave off like a large dog impression. Other times, my dog would be whimpering and placed in the room next to mine, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was afraid to go down the hallway because there was always a shadow figure there. When I moved when I moved in with my father, the paranormal activity stopped. These ain't great, but they're little story things that you can tell around the campfire.